you guys. Happy Saturday evening. I hope you guys had a great Saturday. Let me say hi to you guys. Hey, S. Hockett. Hey, Gretchen. Hey, Sunday. Good to see you. Hey, Queen Olive. Almost said Olivia. Hey, Melissa. Hey, Amy. Good to see you. Hey, Irene. Good to see you. Hey, Julia. Good to see you. How is everyone? Hope you guys are doing good. I hope everybody had a great Saturday. Mine was good. I did a part one this morning at 9 a.m., but right and early for me, which I was a little late for because I overslept. Oops. And basically, what we did was we went over Tabitha. Hold on a second. Went over Tabitha's testimony. Tabitha is George Wagner's ex-wife. Okay. And hey, Nikki, good to see you. Welcome in. So we watched her testimony, and the reason why I wanted to cover her testimony is because I think that if we're going to talk about the dynamics that existed in the Wagner family, and also the way that the Wagner family was regarded in their own community, I think it's important to hear from people who lived it, to hear from people who actually experienced what the family dynamic was like. Now, what we heard from Tabitha, now she testified at George's trial, and her testimony was in two parts because she was the last witness on one of the days. And so her testimony is going to continue. Oh, wow. Hey, Hope. Thank you. I'll have to thank Melissa for sending you over. Hey, Riley. Good to see you. Oh, I'm so sorry, babe. I'm sorry for your loss and that you had to go to a funeral. I know how hard it's been for you. I'm so sorry about your loss. That had to be devastating. I'm really sorry. And we're going to rally and give you some community. Okay. Did I miss somebody? I feel like I did. Saying hi. If it was unintentional, if I missed you, I'm glad you're all here. So we're going to listen to the second part of Tabitha's testimony. And essentially what Tabitha has testified to is Angela Wagner's way of running the household. It was Angela's house, and therefore, hey, Christina J. Hey, Lisa. Good to see you. It was Angela's house, and Angela ran it with an iron fist. And oh, thank you, Julia. I'm glad that you appreciate it. This case is something else. Remember how I was telling you guys this morning that there wasn't going to be snow in my part of Texas? Well, apparently the forecast has changed and we're supposed to get snow on Thursday, and I'm kind of excited, although it's going to be cold, but that's okay. Okay, so Tabitha. Angela, when she was giving her allocution, which is her statement during sentencing, what she said was that, hey, Rachel, good to see you. Hey, Music City. It's been a minute and 18 months of membership. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you for supporting me in the channel. In her allocution statement, Angela said that she, while being in jail, had time to reflect, and that one of the things that she reflected on was this need to be the perfect wife, be the perfect mother, be the perfect grandmother, keep the perfect house. And, you know, that's utter poppycock. I don't, that's no. Angela is not a perfectionist. Angela is a control freak, and there's a difference. She did not foster an environment in her home where there was love and that she would do anything and everything for her family. That's not what was going on in the Wagner household. What was going on in the Wagner household is Angela pit both of her sons, George and Jake, against each other. Jake was the clear favorite, but George always wanted his mother's approval. And the proof of that is the crime that he helped this family carry out, among other crimes, which includes arson. They set one of their homes on fire and burned it down, and then uh, committed insurance fraud. And she pit her daughters-in-law, being Tabitha, who was George's wife at the time, and Hannah Mae, who was with Jake at the time, against each other to compete for her love and for her affection. And quite frankly, she's a piece of work and a monster. And I'm over it. I'm still just as angry at 9:12 p.m. on January 4th, 2025, as I was on Friday morning listening to the judge, listening to Jake's soliloquy of baloney, listening to Angela, and listening to the judge admonish Angela because she had all their cell phones and she could have stopped it, and all she had to do was make a call, and his, you know, using his judicial to just discretion to correct some perceived wrong in the sentencing and give Jake a shot at parole in 32 years, which quite frankly is worse than we actually thought, because I had forgotten about the credit for time served. So he's going to get like 2,000 some odd days credit for time served, which actually means in real time he will be able to um, ask for parole 26 years, not 32 years. Hey, Allie, good to see you, babe. So the whole thing is caca in my estimation. I'm still angry about it, still frustrated, still disgusted by the way that the judge treated the family members in court. All of it was disgusting. And Angela controlled her sons and her daughters-in-law in really sick ways. She had some really archaic views on relations between men and women. For example, it should only be done for procreation. Um, it's just ridiculous. And she had these types of discussions, and this tells you, in my opinion anyway, just how controlling she was. The fact that she would have these conversations at the breakfast table, like imagine you're sitting at the table in your mother-in-law's house, okay? You aren't allowed to communicate with your family. They are not allowed to come to the house to see you, and you are not allowed to go to their house to see them. You can't communicate with them on the phone. She's ruling that she's running the house with an iron fist, and you are just having a bowl of Cheerios, and she starts talking about, if you give oral, you're going to hell. Yet somehow, if you commit murder, not just one, but 8 murders, that's cool. That's frowned upon, but you probably not go straight to hell. You might not even go to hell at all. I just don't understand that skewed way of thinking. But that is her line of thinking. And Tabitha was really, and we're going to hear more about it from her in just a second when we get started. But Tabitha was really terrorized by the entire family. They ganged up on her. They went against her all the time. Her son, George and Tabitha's son, wasn't even allowed to sleep with them in the crib that was bought for him. He slept with Angela and Billy Wagner because that's how she wanted it. Her mom wasn't even allowed at the hospital when she gave birth. Every child, every daughter wants their mother for the most part. They want their mother to be there. And yet her mother wasn't allowed to be around the baby. Her mother didn't even get to see the child and her grandson until the baby was almost a year and a half old. And when she finally had enough and she left George, they committed these murders and promptly took her son to Alaska. And it wasn't until until the Wagners were arrested that Tabitha got custody of her son back. I mean, this family is a family of criminals. And I have constantly and repeatedly referred to them as the bootleg version of the Devil's Rejects, the Firefly family, because that's how they behave. They're criminals. And another way that Angela controlled and Billy controlled everybody in the family was through their criminal enterprise. You know, when they set that home on Bethel View on fire and committed insurance fraud, Tabitha helped them all move certain items from the home that they didn't want burned in the fire to another structure on the property. And Angela also had Tabitha help her fill out receipts for items in the home so that they could claim that on their insurance, making her complicit in a crime. So, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, you know, for her to get up, that's what makes me so angry about that allocution statement. It was so hollow. That she's not sorry at all. She's sorry she got caught. She's sorry she's away from Jake, but she's not sorry. She doesn't feel bad that she testified against George. She doesn't feel bad that the reason that George, now don't get me wrong, George is a big boy. All right. He made his decision. He decided that he was going to go along with this and he participated. Okay. He's wrapped up in this just as much. But he did it because of her. And she did it for Jake. It's disgusting. The whole thing is just disgusting. Okay. So let's finish hearing from Tabitha. Let's see. I need to see. I guess it's not really going to show exactly when. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Exactly when she's on cross, but we'll figure it out. All right. All right. Let's go.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Welcome back. Ms. Claytor, we talked a lot yesterday, and we had talked about your relationship with George Wagner and how that progressed and how initially.
I'm just going to speed it up to 1.25 only because there's a lot of like time in between the questions and the answers. Not that it takes a long time. It's between the answer and the next question, I should say. That would be a better way to describe it. All right, here we go.
You saw him for a short period of time and then broke up, but then reunited basically when you were a senior in high school, correct?
Yes.
And at that time you started living with him and it progressed to marriage and then approximately a year later having a child, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you lived.
I'm so sorry, more interruptions because I need to greet some people as they've come in. MK Lynn, how you doing? B. Frank, Jennifer, good to see you. I'm so glad everybody is here. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. All right, here we go. Now we're starting for real, so get comfy.
First at Bethel Hill and then eventually at Peterson Road after the house on Bethel Hill was burned down, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And one of the things that we were talking about were kind of the family dynamics. And if you could just tell us what the family dynamics were there when you lived with the Wagners.
Very strange and controlling.
Okay. And when you say strange and controlling, can you tell us what observations did you make? What makes you say that?
Well, I mean, it's, if Angela made a rule, then you had to follow that rule.
And I believe you already talked some about, the fact that your family wasn't allowed around, that Angela was the one that went with you to the hospital instead of your own mother, and she spent the night with you at the hospital instead of George even, correct?
Yes.
Was there a time where you also wanted to breastfeed Bovine and that did not happen?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us why that happened?
Well, whenever we were at the hospital, Angela had said that since my son was still crying, he was still hungry, so I wasn't making enough. So I needed to formula feed him.
Okay. And did you get conflicting information from the lactate specialist who was at the hospital?
I'm sorry.
Hearsay.
I would say medical treatment and diagnosis, Your Honor.
Well, it may be a leading question as well.
Okay. I can lay foundation, Your Honor.
Okay, I forgot about
Where-
this
where
part.
did you go to have?
Okay, I forgot about Judge Deering, who is the one who has presided over this case from the very beginning up until when he retired and Judge Hine took over for Billy's trial. Okay, but Judge Deering presided over all of this, and I forgot about his like mannerisms and style and stuff in court, and he has an interesting way of I don't dislike him, but he just sometimes he has unintentional comic relief. For example, they objected to hearsay, but the judge went ahead and threw in, well, by the way, it's also kind of a leading question as well. So, I mean, that's just his style, but I forgot about that because it's been a minute since I've listened to this testimony. All right, here we go. But y'all know I got to cut in for commentary, so I'm not trying to be, rude or anything, but YouTube rules and all.
Your son?
SOMC.
Okay. And while you were at SOMC, as part of having given birth to your first child, did you consult with a lactation specialist while you were in the hospital?
Yes.
And can you tell us what, if anything, the lactation specialist told you as far as your milk and?
Is there an exception to the hearsay rule?
I would say this is medical hearsay, Your Honor. It's an exception of medical diagnosis or treatment.
I agree. Let her tell it.
That, yes.
Here we go. She can testify. It's not to the truth of the matter, okay? Look, the truth of the matter would be about the actual murders or any of the other crimes, right? But this is something that she was given at the hospital. This is medical. This is not hearsay. It's ridiculous. Also, I kind of skipped through this. Oh, is it? I didn't know that, be frank. Good to know. But I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I skimmed through some of this testimony already, and barely, MK. And I muted instead of pushing pause. All right. Remember how we were talking about the camera operator in Friday's hearing and how that camera operator was giving us Blair Witch vibes because of the rapid zooming in, zooming out, panning, like the camera operator didn't realize there's a slow zoom, there's a slow pan. Well, this camera operator is completely the opposite. Everything is a slow zoom and everything is a slow pan. In fact, there's a couple of times when he pans away from the witness to catch what's going on at the bench, and he or she is so slow at the pan that they're already heading back to their seats and to the lectern to continue questioning by the time the pan is over. And these are just little idiosyncrasies that make no difference in the outcome of the trial. They're just things that I notice. This is what it's like to live inside Bendy's brain. Welcome.
Did you want to continue to try to breastfeed your
Yes.
son? Okay.
Oh, I believe
However,
her
with the
fully.
undivided formula
Sunday
instead.
Doodles.
Yes.
Fully.
You talked about if Angela made a rule that had to be followed. Were you ever aware of family meetings that the Wagners would have at their house?
Yes.
And can you tell us how would those occur? What would be the topics of discussion?
I don't know what the topics were. I was never allowed to be in those meetings.
Okay. And how did you know one of those meetings was occurring?
I was asked to leave.
Okay. And who would be involved in the family meetings?
George, Jake, Billy, and Angela.
Okay, hold on. I need to pause again. Okay. This is something, remember we talked about in part 1, that if there's a filing cabinet in your brain for the Pike County murders and you're trying to catalog information, this piece of information is important because in the hearing that followed after the sentencing for Billy Wagner, there were motions made about some of the evidence that the defense wanted to keep out, saying that it went to the 404B bad acts being more prejudicial than probative, right? And they spoke about specific conversation or just conversations in general that maybe Billy Wagner was not a part of. Okay, but this is important because she's testifying that there were family meetings and she was not included in those family meetings. She was asked to leave. And I mean, I can't imagine how that must have made her feel. And Billy was definitely a part of it. So I'm over this. Billy Wagner didn't know certain things. He knew.
And were you aware as to whether or not they took votes in those meetings?
Basically,
I asked if she's aware. It's a yes or no question, Your Honor.
well, I'll let her answer yes or no to that question, but, all right.
What would be the foundation to this speculation?
Well,
I'm
the next-
asking
the
her
next
if
que-
she was aware.
The next question I may not allow, depending if there's no foundation, but she can answer the question, yes or no. You can ask her that question again.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, tell him, Judge
Were you
Deering.
aware as to whether they took votes at that meeting, at those meetings?
Kind of.
Okay. What do you base your knowledge on? I'm asking if she,
I'll overrule that. I'll let her answer that question.
Yeah, let her
That's
answer
one
it.
Question, what you base that knowledge on.
Towards the end of the meetings, they would usually argue.
okay. Were you ever informed of the outcome of any of those meetings?
That's yes or no. That's a yes or no question.
What was the question?
Were you ever informed of the outcome of any of those meetings or any decisions that had been made as a result?
Yes.
You said yes? Okay. And can you tell us, at some point, did you learn that the Wagners had made a fake Facebook account for you?
Yes.
Well, it's leading, so I'm going to sustain the objection.
Poor Angela Canepa, bless her heart. Okay, this is important as well. Okay, because this is a part of the evidence that the defense very, very much wants to keep out, this Facebook situation. So we're going to listen to this and then we're going to talk about it, okay? If Angela gets to get it out, bless her heart. Poor Miss Canepa. I need to call her by her name. Like, I need to be more formal, Miss Canepa, because I don't know her like that to be calling her Angela. Like, we don't kick it on Saturdays. I don't know her. She doesn't call me up on the phone and ask for my opinion on how she did that day in court. I don't know her like that.
Do you have Facebook accounts?
Yes.
Facebook accounts that you created?
I've created some of them, but there's some that I have not.
Okay. Tell us about the ones that you did not create.
Objection. Foundation.
Your Honor, can we approach you? Okay. Tell us about the ones that you did not create.
There's one that's under Tabitha Wagner that says that I live in Marion, Ohio.
Objection to the content.
Say it again.
Objection to the content.
As to what?
The content of the statement.
Well, it may go beyond the question as well. I'm not sure what you're asking her.
Okay. How did you discover this Facebook account that you did not create?
Friends and family told me.
Okay. Did you locate the Facebook account?
Yes.
And did you confirm that you in fact had not created it?
Yes.
And what kind of information, was the information in it accurate?
No.
Okay. At that time, you lived with the Wagners, correct?
Yes.
Where did it indicate that you lived?
Marion, Ohio.
Did it also indicate a job?
Yes.
Well,
That's
I'll
not
let her
leading.
objection. Let her answer.
Did it indicate a job that you had?
Yes.
And what was that job, if you recall?
Working at a motel.
Okay. Did you work at a motel at that time? Right.
No hope. They're not going to let her, they don't want
Peter,
her
I'm
to
going to hand you
speak.
what's been marked with State's Exhibit EE1.
She's got some stuff to
Take a
say.
moment and look through those pages, multiple pages so we go together.
And it is frustrating.
Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that as?
A fake Facebook account for me.
Okay. And drawing your attention to the friends there, at the top of the page there, do you recognize any of those individuals?
Yes.
And who do you recognize those as?
This is Georgia's family or their friends from the past.
Okay. And again, you did not create that account yourself?
No.
Okay. Did you give anybody permission to
No.
create that for you? Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, it is Angela Wagner herself who created these accounts.
Ms. Pater, were you working for a period of time when you lived with the Wagners?
Yes.
And where were you working?
At Crystal Springs,
Okay. And what is Crystal Springs?
the group home that Frederica Wagner owns.
Okay. That your mother also worked for?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you start working there?
Oh, Jade Ray,
Mark.
thank you so much. MJ, I appreciate that, babe. Hey, Nancy.
I think right after we got married, I think. It was around the time of the wedding.
Around the time of the wedding that you started?
Yeah.
Okay. So I believe you testified yesterday, you graduated in 2012, correct?
Yes.
And then got married the same year,
Yes.
July of that year. And then You started working there at some point around that time?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Was there a time when you were unfaithful to George after you were married?
Yes,
Okay. And was it during the time that you were working at Crystal Springs?
yes,
Did George and the rest of the family find out about that?
yes,
You ultimately told them.
yes.
And at that point, did the restrictions in your life get even more severe?
Yes.
Tell us what happened then.
I had gotten let go from my job. George took my phone from me and factory reset it and gave it to his mom. I wasn't allowed to answer the house phone or check the mail or go outside by myself.
I mean,
And when you
hold on a minute.
informed,
Now look, okay, when this infidelity, as it were, happened, when she and George got married, Tabitha was young. I mean, she was just 18, okay? And I understand that and we're talking about dealing with young people here, like really young people who probably aren't really old enough to understand marriage, to make a commitment like that anyway. However, they did. So I can understand there being a lack of trust on George's part. All right. But for the love of Pete, you can't check the mail. I mean, like they lived on their own. Like, it's not like they lived in a neighborhood. Okay. So it's not like if she sauntered out there to check the mail that she was going to accidentally trip and fall and on a man, for Pete's sake. I mean, that level of control is too much. It was all too much. And I can low key, I can kind of listen. I'm not an advocate for cheating. I don't think it's a good thing to do. It's wrong. Cheating is wrong. But I can understand why when she had a little bit of freedom at the nursing home or at the group home, it wasn't a nursing home, at the group home, that maybe being young, she exercised that first little bit of freedom that she got. Bless her heart.
them of
Still
this.
wrong.
At that time, were you pregnant with Bullvine?
Yes,
Okay. So you remained at the home with the Wagners?
yes.
Okay.
Let me correct something really quick. It's not a nursing home. It is a group home. And I think that it is for adults with disabilities. It's not a nursing home. My bad. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
And then you
Well, welcome in everyone that's come in from the J
remained
Braid.
there
I
until,
appreciate it.
approximately a year after your son was born, correct?
Yes.
Did you feel when you were there that you could parent your child in the way that you wanted to?
No.
Tell us about that.
Every night before we went to bed, I would be made to go take a nap while Angela played with my son.
So again, just more of her spending time with your child that you wanted to spend time with.
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever tell George or have any discussions with him about wanting to have your own place and no longer living with the extended family?
Yes.
Okay. And what was his response?
That we lived on a farm, so we needed to all live together.
He was
Like, just for the record, I absolutely 100% believe what Tabitha is saying here. She doesn't have any reason to lie. She's moved on. She's, you know, she's remarried. She has other children. She doesn't come across as angry or doing this, to be vindictive or anything. In fact, to me, even rewatching it, I was wondering if I'd have the same feelings as I did the first time around, and I do. To me, Tabitha looks like she'd rather be anywhere other than sitting in a courtroom testifying to some really intimate and, you know, private things. And it's not going to get better from here. It's going to get worse because there's stuff that's going to come out, particularly on cross. And I can't remember, it's the way that this camera is angled. Like, look, you say, I can't even see when the cross is coming, but I know that it's coming. So, you know, we all just need to brace ourselves. I feel bad for Tabitha. I really do.
He was not interested in moving out.
No.
She does seem
Why
sad.
did you want to get your own place together?
So I could have a little bit more freedom with my own home.
Did you think it would also improve things between you and your husband?
Objection. Leading.
Well, it's a leading question, so I'm going to sustain the objection.
What did you think it would do to your relationship with your husband if you had your own place?
It would improve it.
Oh my God, stop it, okay? You're terrible.
Did the Jake or George work while you lived
Never
there?
change.
They started work a little bit before the house burnt down on Bethel Hill.
And what were they doing?
Working at I think a car part factory.
And did they keep that job?
For a very short time.
Okay. Did they ever go to school for anything past the homeschooling?
Yes.
And what school did they go to?
The Career Center in McDermott.
Career Center where?
In McDermott.
Okay. And what did they go there for?
Auto mechanics?
Okay. They go together, like at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did they ever get another job while you were with them?
It was George and Billy had a asphalt. They drove a semi-truck for an asphalt company.
You said George and Billy?
Yes.
Asphalt?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember when that was?
I think it was before I got pregnant.
I might have to speed her up just a tad, you guys.
And you mean like they owned the business? They
No.
created the business? Oh, okay. They worked at that business?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know for how long that lasted?
Just a couple of months.
And do you remember any other jobs that they had?
They owned a semi-truck.
And what would they do with a semi-truck?
Get jobs and haul stuff, cattle.
I believe that the deal with the Wagner men is that they work when they had to. So, you know, that's about it.
Can you tell us, Tabitha, we've talked a little bit about
Oh, I love that.
the event or how long you stayed there. What made you leave when you left?
Me and George were in an argument and he slapped me.
Okay. And if you can tell us, first of all, do you recall when that happened?
Sorry about that. I pushed a button and I don't know what I did, but I closed everything. So apologize for that. Let me fix it. Give me just 1 second here. I didn't even mean, I was trying to push pause. Apparently, I don't know how to work uh anything. I don't know what I even did. All right, here we go. Hold on. Sorry about that, you guys. So this is what, now we're getting into the meat and the potatoes of all of it. We're about to hear from Tabitha exactly what it was that um, caused her to leave. And this might be triggering for some people. So uh, this is your trigger warning. Here we go.
A couple of months after my son's first birthday.
Okay.
I'm going to rewind
And
it
when was
just a
your
little
son
bit.
born again? Do you recall there? What made you leave when you left?
Me and George were in an argument and he slapped me.
Okay. And if you can tell us, first of all, do you recall when that happened?
A couple of months after my son's first birthday,
Okay. And when was your son born again? Was that July of?
2013.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, you guys.
You said a few months after his first birthday?
Yes.
Okay.
Trying to click, trying to do too many things and clicked wrong. It's the story of my life. But let me just say this. It's the type of quality content you'll find nowhere else other than the Ward Case Studies. Brought to you by yours truly, Jen Bindi Lou. You're welcome. All right, here we go.
And can you tell us what led up to that argument?
Me not cleaning the kitchen after Angela had made lunch.
After Angela had done what?
Made lunch.
Okay. And so tell us about that. How did you know you were supposed to do that?
She told me to get it cleaned up while her and Hannah went to pick up a toy for the kids.
Hey, Justin,
And did you
welcome
do that?
in.
No,
Why not?
because my son had woke up, so I laid with him to take a nap. So he could take a nap.
Okay. Was your son already napping at the time that
Yes.
Angela asked you to do that? Okay. And where were the rest of the people? Where was Jake and George at that time?
They were, I think Jake was with Billy driving the truck, and George was building the building that was beside the house.
Doing what?
Building the shed that is beside the house.
Okay.
So this trial, Riley, was,
But
hold on a
I've been having a
second.
little bit of trouble hearing you, but if you can just make sure.
Go handle up on that mic, Angela, or Miss Canepa, while I answer Riley here. So Riley says, is this trial going on currently or was it a while ago? George's trial happened in 2022, so this was a while ago. But we just listened to Jake and Angela Wagner be sentenced ahead of Billy Wagner's upcoming trial, which was against what the state and the defense had agreed to. They had an agreement between them that when Jake and Angela testified in both George Wagner's trial and Billy Wagner's trial, after their testimony, they would remove the death penalty from each of the trials. And the judge who was appointed after the original trial judge, Judge Deering, retired, Judge Hine was appointed. And what he did was he just came in like an absolute wrecking ball, and in the absolute worst way. Okay. And just started making a mess, just really mucking stuff up. And at this point, because he went ahead and removed the death penalty from Billy Wagner's case without anybody asking him to. Typically, the state will make a motion to have the death penalty dismissed. Okay. He just said, you know what, you don't have a deal, blah, 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 made some kind of analogy talking about trains and train tracks. And then there was an apple cart thrown in there somewhere that I'd never understood the part about the apple cart myself, what kind of apples there were. Was the apple cart upright, upside down? Was it full? I don't know. Anyway, so he decided to remove the death penalty. Well, the death penalty was essentially the leverage that the state had over Jake and Angela Wagner to get them to testify. And this was something that was agreed on back in 2021 when Jake and Angela turned state's evidence and took plea deals. And it messed up everything. And Billy Wagner's trial was actually supposed to be Monday, January 6th. But because he removed the death penalty, the state is appealing that ruling, and it's now in the appellate court. And he also went ahead and approved a change of venue, saying that he didn't believe that this high-profile case could get a fair jury picked in Pike County. Well, the problem with that is there's a family member who is only identified by the initials TR who has objected to a change of venue. And my suspicion is it has nothing to do with money, because victims' rights will help with the cost of getting this family member or family members to the trial should it be moved. Okay. I think what it has to do with is that it's probably a medical issue that keeps the family member from being able to travel. And there are several family members, victims' family members, I should say, who are really up there in age, and they have made it to each and every pretrial hearing from the beginning, since the Wagners were arrested in 2018 all the way up until now. And they sat through the entirety of George Wagner's trial. And this judge just came in and made these sweeping decisions and rulings and just messed everything up. And what he did on Friday was just really the way that he spoke to the victims' family members. Really, he just re-victimized them. I don't think he's going to get away with it. I do think that is going to be overturned on appeal. I just think that what happened in this case with this new judge is just appalling. And I am absolutely disgusted by it, especially after we've seen some really, really great caring judges. Judge Cranick. That man was as patient as the day is long, because I would have lost it on Owens the first time he asked, the first time I had to repeat myself after asking, what is the legal basis for your argument? And the answer I got was, as you know, Your Honor, I've only just taken this case 2.5 weeks ago, or whatever it was that his answer was, which was a non-answer. I would have lost it on him then. Not only that, but Judge Cranick, anytime and every time, regardless of who it was or what was going on, if somebody sneezed in that courtroom, that man said, bless you, every single time. Then we had Judge Werner, who also was a fantastically patient judge. Look at how Dr. Lewis acted. I mean, he said to her, now, Dr. Lewis, I'm going to ask you this question, and if you have the files, you have the files, but you're not going to get up there on that stand and pull them out of your purse later. And she said, no, I won't, Your Honor. And spoiler alert, 5 minutes later, she gets asked a question, and here she goes, a fumbling in her purse. Her phone went off during her testimony, God love her, and she couldn't figure out how to turn it off. And we just seen some really great and patient judges. And let me say this, Judge Hine ain't one of them. All right, let me get off my soapbox so you guys can listen to her testimony, which is what you came here for. Here we go.
Sure, you're close to yeah, you're good. Thank you. Okay, so what happens then? Jake and Billy are gone. George is doing the shed, and Hannah and Angela.
Hey, Lil Red.
And your son wakes up, and so you lay down with him, so he'll go back to sleep?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So
Good
then
night, be
what happens?
Frank. Feel better soon.
Angela and Hannah come back and see that I didn't clean up the mess.
So what happens then?
Then me and Angela start to argue.
Okay. Did you explain to her what had happened?
Yes.
I cannot
And what
see
happened
Ruth
then?
Ann. Hold on a minute.
George didn't like that I was yelling at his mother.
Basis of that is, I'll overlook.
How did you know he didn't like that? What happened?
He came in and started smacking me with a belt.
Hold on a minute. Please disregard. Apparently, on Streamlabs, it doesn't show you somebody's entire screen name, and her whole name is Queen Olive Ruth Ann, and I thought it was two separate people. Please disregard. That is all. Apparently, I don't know how to work YouTube anymore at all. I should probably just throw this whole day away. All right, here we go.
And where in the house were you at that time?
In the kitchen doorway.
And what happened then?
We went to the bedroom,
And when you say we, who do you mean?
me and George.
Okay. And what happened there? He objected, Your Honor.
I'm sorry. Oh, another objection. I'm sorry. Basis is overruled.
What happened in the bedroom?
I was going to go out and sit on the porch so I could calm down and not be so angry.
Okay. So you wanted to go outside to just be by yourself, calm down, and not be as angry?
Yes.
Okay. Were you permitted to go outside?
No.
How were you not permitted to go outside?
George stood in front of the door and wouldn't let me.
Okay. And what did you do at that point?
I bit him and tried to rip his nuts off
Okay. When you say you bit him, where did you bite him?
on his arm, out towards his armpit.
Okay. And why did you bite that area, his arm? What was he doing at that point?
He had his arm against the door, not letting me go through it.
Okay. Did he let you pass at that point?
He grabbed a hold of his nuts, so his arm moved, so that's whenever I ran out the door.
And then what did you do?
I started walking through the yard, and then George and Angela came outside to try to tell me to come back inside.
And what happened outside?
I told them that I was not going to go back inside, that I was going to leave, and so Angela threw a board at me, and then told George that she was going to go inside and get a gun.
When you say she threw a board at you, what kind of a board?
A 2x4.
And both Angela and George were outside with you at that point?
Yes.
Okay. And then Angela says she's going to go get a gun.
Yes.
At any point outside, did George have physical contact with you?
Yeah, before the argument got really worse, we were outside, and we were arguing, and he told me I needed to stop screaming, or he was going to smack me, and so I screamed louder, and so he smacked me
Okay. And where did he smack you?
in the face.
Okay. And then, what was your response to that?
And I told him that he just signed his divorce papers.
That he just signed his divorce papers because he smacked you?
Yes.
Okay. So when Angela says she's going to go get a gun, what do you do?
I continue going out the yard and through the fence, and I hid underneath of George's truck.
You said you hid under George's truck?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, where were George or Angela at that point?
I assumed they were going in to get whichever gun they chose.
They did not chase you at that time?
No.
Okay. And can you tell us what time of the day this argument first started? And I don't need an exact time, but was it the afternoon? Was it the evening?
It was near evening.
Okay. Was it dark when the argument occurred?
It started to get dark.
Okay. And did you have any more contact with them while you were still there hiding under George's truck?
No.
Did you see any of them? Did they
There
appear
were flashlights.
Okay. You said there were flashlights, plural? More than
Yes.
one flashlight?
Yes.
And at this point, where were you?
I was still underneath the George's truck.
Okay. And can you just explain to us, like, how under his truck you are? Like, how are you positioned in relation to?
Under the cab, basically.
Okay.
Right behind the front tires.
Did they find you?
No.
Did they eventually give up looking for you?
Yes.
And what did you do at that point?
I got out from underneath of the truck and went to the barn and got my bicycle.
Okay. And at that time, how many barns were on that property?
Just one.
Okay. And was that the older barn?
Yes.
Okay. You had a bicycle there?
Yes.
Okay. When they were out with the flashlights, were they saying anything? Were they calling to you at all, or
No.
they were just looking?
They were just moving around the yard and underneath of things.
Okay. Did they ever look underneath the truck?
Not that I can remember.
And you got your bicycle, you said, and what did you do?
I left. I went to the gas station up the road by McDonald's.
Okay. And can you tell us, at that point, was it dark?
Yes.
Okay. And dark out there, right, in the country? Approximately how far is that to the gas station?
Driving, it's about 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. And can you tell us why were you hiding from them?
I didn't want to get shot.
And did you make it to the gas station?
Yes.
Okay. Did you encounter anybody along the way?
Yes.
Tell us who.
George and Jake in their red Suburban.
And what did they say to you?
They were trying to get me to get in the car so we could go home.
And did you agree to get into the car?
No.
What, if anything, did you say to them?
And I told them that I wasn't going to live with them if they're going to hit me.
And what happened then? Or did you tell them where you were going?
I told them that I was going to go to the gas station so I could call my mom so she can come get me.
Okay. And is that what you did?
Yes.
And how were you able to make that phone call at the gas station?
And the cashier working that night gave me her cell phone.
You still did not have a phone with you.
No.
You called your mom.
Yes.
And did your mom come?
Yes.
Okay. Approximately how long after you called your mom did she come?
Maybe about an hour and a half, about 2 hours.
Okay. And did you call the police?
No.
Okay. Were you offered to call the police?
Yes.
Who offered that to you?
And the cashier.
Okay. You declined?
Yes.
Okay. Did you then see any more of the Wagners and or police?
Yes, I seen both of them.
Okay. And can you tell us which of the Wagners did you see?
All 4 of them plus Hannah.
Okay. So Jake, George, Angela, Billy, and Hannah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, Hannah May was just as much under the control and under the thumb of Angela Wagner at this time. And she is young and impressionable and really loved Jake and wanted to make it work. And so I don't, I think Hannah was just doing what she was told. I mean, you see what happens when you don't do what you're told. And Tabitha is an example of this. And so, yeah, it's awful. And she doesn't have the best background either. She is the victim of SA as a child. So, she's fragile.
Do you know where the children were at that time?
No.
And did they remain in their car or did they get out of the car?
They got out and talked to the cop that was there.
Okay. And so the police also were there. What happened then?
The Wagners left, and I was still sitting in the cop car waiting for my mom.
Okay. So you were at some point you got into the cop car?
Yes, he had me sit in there.
Okay. Did you become aware that the Wagners or George, someone filed a complaint against you?
Yes,
Okay. And what type of complaint was that?
domestic violence.
Okay. And what was alleged against you?
That I was causing a big fuss at home and dragging my child across the floor.
Did you drag your child across the floor?
No, I did not.
So you went, your mother picked you up. Where did you go when you left? When she picked you up?
Back to her house.
Okay. And who lived at her house at that time?
It was her and my stepdad and my little sister,
Okay. And what's your little sister's name?
Christina.
Chrissy or Christy?
Christina.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Did you ever go back to live with the Wagners after that?
No.
Okay. And did you press any charges against anybody that night?
No.
What happened with the criminal charges?
George gave me the money to pay some sort of fine that I guess he said that was supposed to be paid. And then George said that the charges were dropped.
And do you remember approximately how much after this thing happened that the charges were dropped?
It's just a couple of days, maybe a week.
Now, these reprobates, he hit her first. She hit him back. And then this crybaby has the audacity to press charges on her. And because everybody that was at the home at the time took George's side, and essentially whatever it was that the family told the cops, they all went along with it. And that's how she ends up getting charged, but they were dropped.
And during this time, did you and George, or one or the other of you, move for a divorce or dissolution?
He filed for one.
Okay. And do you have a recollection of how soon after this happened that he filed for?
It's been a couple of weeks.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did he have an attorney?
Yes.
Do you know who that attorney was?
No, I just remember it was a female.
Okay. And did you have an attorney?
No.
Why not?
Because when we got divorced, since I didn't have my own place or job, then he was supposed to have our son until I got a place.
Okay. And let me ask you also, were you able to afford an attorney at that time?
No, I had no job.
Okay. So did you meet with his attorney?
I met her once when George went to see her.
Okay.
Oh, Jennifer, I'm so sorry, babe. Well, I'm glad that we can be here tonight, even for just a little while to distract you. That's got to be hard. I'm so sorry, babe. Well, we got you.
Did you meet him there, or did he take you, or did you recall?
I can't remember.
Okay. So you indicated that at that time you did not have your own place to live, and nor did you have a job at the time of the dissolution, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you indicated that he was supposed to have your son because of that, and that, what was your understanding of once you got a job or your own place, and your own place?
We were supposed to go back to court, and we were supposed to do the 50-50 shared parenting.
That was something you discussed with George?
Yes.
Okay. And that was your understanding.
Yes.
And what was your understanding of what the agreement that you signed, what was your understanding of what that was, or what it said?
That I was supposed to have supervised visits whenever we both agreed on a place and a time.
Okay. And whenever you both agreed, correct?
No, I didn't agree on that.
Okay, I'm sorry. You said that you were to have supervised visits in at whatever time you both agreed?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yes,
Okay.
the time and place for the visitation we were supposed to agree on.
Okay. So basically,
Oh, Bama Green Eyes, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's hard. I'm sorry, babe. I'm glad you guys are both here. Anybody that's here because they needed a distraction, I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad I can be that for you. I'm so sorry. It's got to be. I'm so sorry, you guys, both of you.
based on your understanding of the agreement, did you believe that George alone got to decide when you get to see your son, or did you believe that you would have input into that and you guys would reach an agreement about that?
I thought that me and him would talk about it and figure out when we both had time to see him.
Okay. And is that what happened?
No,
Okay, tell us about that.
after we got divorced, it was about a year before I got to see my son again.
And why was that?
Because George wouldn't let me.
Did you,
Now, let's unpack what she just said. So, after this horrific incident, they get divorced. George files for divorce. Okay. George has money, so George gets an attorney. Tabitha does not have an attorney. She thought that that the way that the papers read, that she thought she would, that's what she thought was in the agreement, that she and George would keep their son until she was stable, until she got a job in her own place. And in the meantime, that there would be supervised visitation, and that she and George would discuss the terms of that supervised visitation, such as times and location, dates, etc., which never happened. She didn't get to see her child for a year. In that time, it was not George who was taking care of their son day to day. It was Angela Wagner, which is exactly what she wanted. It was Angela acting through George. That's why Tabitha did not get to see her son. And I wonder, after all of this, as George is sitting there in this courtroom, not giving a face. This is why the camera person never really pans over to George, because he actually doesn't react in any way, shape, or form. But I wonder what he's sitting there thinking about, knowing that his mother is about to get up on that stand and testify against him. And he did everything that she asked him to do. And I wonder how he's feeling. I wonder if he has regrets about the way that he treated the mother of his child. About anything, frankly. All of it.
seek out or try to have opportunities to see your son during that time period?
Yes.
And in fact, was there a point where you got a job and moved out of your mother's home?
Yes.
Okay. So Bama Green Eyes asks, did George remarry? I think that George may have dated around a little bit, but it wasn't serious. But I do remember that when they moved to Alaska and Jake started dating another young lady named Beth Ann, and then ended up marrying her, George was livid about it. He, because the whole reason they were in friggin' Alaska to begin with is because the whole family had committed this heinous crime, these 8 murders. And I think George was pretty salty about all of it because the motive for the murders was the custody of the daughter that Hannah Mae Rhoden and Jake Wagner shared. And, you know, that's what it was. So, I mean, that's a long Miss America answer, but no, he never remarried. Not that I remember. I don't think so, no.
And can you tell us, were there times that you were told that you could see him, but then,
It is leading, so sustain the objection.
you indicated that it was approximately a year before you were ever able to see your son?
Yes.
Correct. Tell us if you ever attempted to make arrangements or did make arrangements.
Yes, I had asked him multiple times if I can come and see him, and he would either say not right now, or we would make a time, or he would tell me a time that I could come to his house and see him.
And would you see him during those times where well, first of all, what excuses would he give you as far as not right now?
That they were busy or they weren't going to be home.
And tell me about a time where you were given a time.
The first time I got to see him again, me and George met at McDonald's.
And you were able to see him then?
Yes, to drop off his Christmas presents.
I can't even take credit for that, Irene. Irene says, I'm going to have to borrow that statement. That's a long Miss America answer. I can't even take credit for that. My youngest daughter, Minnie Bindi, is the one who said, my mom gives long Miss America answers. So I just always thought that was funny. And now that's just what I say.
And if I told you that your dissolution was final in January of 15, first of all, does that match your recollection?
Yes.
Okay. So would have it been that first Christmas, like December, like basically 11 months later that you were able to meet? Or was it? Yeah.
Yes, it was later that year.
Okay. And that was the first time you saw him after you had left in November of 2014?
Yes.
And during that time
Before Ms. Canepa asks this next question, just so you know, any of the statements that you want to borrow will be available. MJ and I are working on a coffee table book of all of, I forgot what we were going to call it, Bendy's bullshit sayings, something like that. So coming soon, maybe at some point, I don't know, but yeah, you guys can use any of them. I think several other, like lots of people say them. I've got people saying, 11 billion. What are my other ones that I say? All the rat's fat kneecap, use any of them. They're funny.
before you were able to see him the first time, did he ever agree to meet you but then not be there?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about that.
I would ask him what day I can come over, and if he did make a day and a time for me to come over, I would either be in the driveway asking him where he's at, or I would be about halfway there, and he would tell me that they're not home right now.
Okay. And you said there was a time when you arrived at his home, but your son was not present.
Yes.
Okay.
That's one I
Was
use a
anybody
lot.
in your family allowed to accompany
That back the milk truck up. I use that one a lot. Use them all.
you when you were granted visits?
Only the first time at McDonald's, and that was because he didn't know that she was with me.
Okay. And who is she?
My mother.
Okay. Were you also told your sister could not accompany you on any visits?
All right, I'll sustain the objection, it's a leading question.
Were you ever told any other relative was not allowed to accompany you on visits?
Yes, none of my sisters or anyone could come with me
And did George give you a reason as to why your sister or sisters could not?
because he did not like them.
how many times would you say you were granted visits with your son? If we start with the McDonald's in December of 2015, that gets us into 2016. How many times approximately would you say you got to see your son in 2016?
Maybe 7 or 8 times
And where would those visits occur?
at George's house.
And did you,
Okay, let's put all this horrific, oh yeah, shut up, Tisha. Let's put all this horrific testimony into, let's unpack it all. All right. So the whole reason for the divorce is because George hit her. She defended herself. He presses charges. They drop the charge. He calls the cops. The cops, the charges end up getting dropped. He files for divorce. She thinks that they're gonna, she's gonna still get to see her son, even though he's going to reside with the Wagners, with his father. And she makes every attempt in the world to try to see her child, and he either no shows or, calls her while she's already either halfway there or there and says they're not home right now. And he just, gives her the runaround. Okay. And then he has then to add insult to injury, she has to see her son at the home around the people where all of this started. Yes, I do say that one. Your feet stink. You're a liar. Your feet stink and you don't love Jesus. That's another one I say. I forgot all the crazy crap that comes out of my mouth. Thank goodness for y'all.
ever meet with an attorney
Y'all really been paying attention.
about the issues you were having with visitation during 2015?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember that attorney, who that was?
No, I do not remember his name.
Okay. And how did you know to go to that attorney, or how did you choose that attorney?
That's where my mom took me. He said that he would give me a free consultation.
Okay.
It sounds better, doesn't it, Rachel, to say I was overserved than to say, I like to use either I was overserved or into the cups. Those are the two I like the best. They sound more dignified than what really actually took place.
And did he give you a free consultation?
Yes.
Okay. And did he give you advice as to how to proceed in trying to regain contact with your son?
Yes.
Okay. And did you follow his advice?
Yes.
Did he ever file anything for you in 2015?
I don't believe so.
Was part of his advice to, what was his advice?
Sustained.
What did you do as a result of his advice?
I had called or texted George and told him that I needed to see him, and I would make a note of when I seen him or when I attempted to see him.
Okay. And did you ever write him a letter in the regular mail?
Yes, I personally put one in his mailbox and then I mailed him one. It was the Pike County or Ohio's shared parenting plan.
I can't even begin to remember how much coffee is at Racy's, but I'll tell you what we still haven't solved. We haven't solved the mystery of the missing yellow cup. Ezra, where's that yellow cup? That was a crazy trial too. Wonder how old Ezra McCandless is doing. I'm gonna have to do some Googling and find out what's going on with Ezra. I think of her from time to
And why
time.
did you give him the shared parenting plan?
That's what the attorney advised me to do.
And in the shared parenting plan, you would have received more and regular visitation with your son, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, Brandy, good to see
And is that what
you.
you were seeking at that time?
No.
Okay. You were trying to get contact with your son.
Yes.
Yes, let's write Ezra. We should.
And can you tell us,
I'm going to start my letter off. Dear Ezra, how's it going? Where's the yellow cup? Not your friend, Jen Lou. That's what I'm going to write to her. It's the only question I want. Where's that dadgum yellow cup, Ezra? You know, the yellow cup you just had to get back? Uh-huh.
When you would visit your son, did he recognize you as his mother?
No,
Tell me about that.
I wasn't allowed to tell him that I was his mother.
Why? Or who told you that?
And George told me not to mention anything about a mother because my son's cousin was there and she had just lost her mother.
Okay. That's a lot. So basically, George and Tabitha's son is not allowed. George and Tabitha's son actually calls Angela mom. And yes, the child they're talking about is the child between Jake and Hannah Mae. But yeah. Angela is something else. The only one of her sons that actually ever halfway kind of sort of interceded on and took his wife's side over Angela was Jake. And we're going to hear about this probably tomorrow. I intend to finish up Tabitha's testimony tonight. And then tomorrow we'll start with Beth Ann's testimony. She's who married Jake when they lived in Alaska. And she also moved back. She moved from Alaska to Ohio. They moved back. She'd never lived in Ohio, but she moved from Alaska to Ohio when they moved back to Ohio. And she has some crazy stories to tell. And I don't think her testimony is incredibly long. So if it's not incredibly long, I mean, I think it's a decent amount, but plus I interrupt a lot. But I do want to play the phone calls that were recorded. Yes, who knew? Angela had George and Tabitha's son calling her mom. And I believe that she wanted Jake and Hannah Mae's daughter to call her mom as well. And if I remember correctly, I think that Jake put his foot down about that. No, she is no longer married to Jake. Oh yeah, this is as our pal Sarah Boone likes to say, Tabitha's testimony is just the tip of the iceberg.
And that would have been then, obviously, at some point after April of 2016, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When did you become aware of the fact that the Wagners, Jake, George, Billy, Angela, your son, went to Alaska?
No.
So Irene says, Angela and her wolves know how to spot vulnerable young women. Angela raised Jake and George to be predators. And it's interesting that you call them wolves or refer to them as wolves because I believe George got a tattoo with a wolf and something about the dead man's hand, the poker hand. That's going to come up later. But hey, Kaz Chick, good to see ya. But yes, she raised Jake and George to be what I consider to be predators, frankly.
When was your first awareness of that?
I believe it was about week or two after they had moved down there.
And they didn't even tell the mother of the child that Tabitha and George shared together. They didn't even bother to tell her that they were, moving their whole entire family to Alaska. Good night, B. Frank. Sweet dreams. Love you too.
Okay. And how did you find out?
Pretty sure it was a friend that told me.
And so you had not received any notice in advance that they were going to take your son and move to Alaska?
Please.
For some reason, it's
Well, all right, I'll sustain the objection to the form of the question if you want to ask it another way.
Did
I
you
don't
get
think it
notice
was
before you
leading.
left to go to Alaska?
No.
What did you do as a result of that?
I had called and asked him why he left without telling me.
And what was his response?
That it's his son, he needs to do what's best for him.
Did you tell him that you felt that violated your agreement?
Yes.
Do you have a recollection of how long they were in Alaska?
About a year.
And during that time, were you able to have contact with your son?
No.
Did you have any contact by phone with him?
No, every time I tried to call and talk to him, he said that he was either too busy or he was asleep.
Did you eventually file for change of custody?
No.
At any time, did you? Like in 2018, did you, I guess?
Basis of that? Well, I'll overlook later, answer.
Okay. At some point, did you file something with?
Now, look here, Mr. Defense Attorney Man. I get that it's your job to do the objecting and all the things, and you're, supposed to mount a vigorous defense for your client. All right. But it's clear that Tabitha she's not a law student. She's not a lawyer. I don't think she understood the question. Cut her some slack. It's not asked and answered. It's not like she's badgering the witness. Sit down. Sit down. And you know what? Next time your client shows up every single day wearing the same black leather vest, maybe tell your client that's not a good look. It made him look even more menacing than he already does. He's already got resting bitch face. To add that dadgum black leather vest to his ensemble every day was too much. It's not a good look. If you want to object and interject so much, why don't you object to that leather vest? It was terrible.
The courts regarding your son?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you eventually get custody of your son?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us when that was?
It was 2018, I believe.
Okay.
Oh, don't you worry, Sunday Doodles. You're going to hear that. Those calls are played in court. We will hear those. We will get to those. Absolutely, we will. All right, here we go. We're almost through it, you guys. So Jennifer says, if I wrote to Angela and said, Dear Angela, how's all that planning you did to get custody working out for you? Are ugly Walmart shoes worth 30 years in prison? I wonder if they would give it to her. As long as you followed the rules for addressing the letter to her, they would give it to her. Absolutely, they would. Also, with the audio, Julia, I think what it is the audio in this courtroom. She's a very soft-spoken person, and the acoustics in this courtroom are terrible, and so the audio has been boosted. So I think that might be the buzzing that you're hearing, because I hear it too. All right, Kez, you go get your drink, but I don't want to be blamed if I have an outburst and say something that is hilariously observant and you spit your drink out. Please exercise caution. Here we go. I say do it. What's the worst that can happen?
Okay, I've now remarked this as joint exhibit number 1. If you can just look through this and tell me if you recognize that at all.
Yes.
Okay, and what do you recognize that as?
This is our divorce papers.
Okay, and it's entitled on the front page as Judgment Entry Decree of Dissolution, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the file date there shows a January of 15 date, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I was about to ask you, Sunday, you're just walking around with the one ear,
And
huh?
I don't know that you necessarily have had an opportunity to look through all of that, but does that look like the agreement that you entered into with George Wagner?
Yes.
Okay. And if you go to the page 30 of that document, do you see in the upper right-hand corner?
Okay.
Kez, I'm going to do
And that,
everything in my power.
Paragraph
Not
A
make
says that
you-
the
hold on.
husband shall be named the custodial and residential.
I'm going to try not to make any hilariously observant observations while you're taking a drink, but I can't make any promises. Okay. So that's why I said my piece. That way I can't be held responsible. You know me. I ain't trying to have no responsibilities. Here we go.
Residential parent with responsibility for the care, residential custody, and control of the minor child. And then the parenting time with states that it provides parenting time with the minor child as can be agreed upon between the parties at reasonable times, correct?
Yes.
Both parties agree to cooperate on the parenting time schedule, correct?
Yes.
Further, the parties agree that they will cooperate at the
No.
what did you think it would be?
I thought that, I was going to be able to go pick up my son and take him to dinner or just go watch a movie or something like that and then drop him back off.
Hey, Sharon, good to see you.
So as far as supervised, you didn't recognize that that meant only at their house, only with them present, the Wagners present?
Yes.
Okay. But you did believe that, again, the parties would be agreeing to reasonable times as opposed to George deciding whether or not you get to see your son.
Yes.
And again, during that first year of 2015, did you see him for any holidays other than Christmas at McDonald's? During that first year?
No.
And again, I believe you already indicated that your belief was that agreement would go to shared parent, or 50/50, I think you called it, at the point that you had your own place and had a dog, correct?
Yes.
Night, Shelly Bean. Thanks for being here, babe. Yes, they are divorced, and that is very fortunate she didn't have a child with him. Because honestly, all I keep thinking about is that in 26 years, Jake Wagner is going to be eligible for parole, and his daughter is a victim. So she will be contacted, and so will the other children that survived this, which are Frankie Rhoden and Hannah Gillies' two sons. They will be old enough, and they are victims, so they will be contacted, and they will have to go and either speak for or against the parole. Now, I would imagine that Frankie Rhoden and Hannah Gillies' sons probably would speak against Jake being paroled. But what a position to put Jake and Hannah's daughter in. Also, Hannah's almost 5-day-old child is also a victim, and she will be contacted as well because they are victims. And so because they are victims, because they are recognized as victims by the justice system, and he is the offender, they will be notified of his parole hearing. They will also be notified when Angela Wagner is released. And this family is just, the audacity that this family has is something to behold. Like, it even shocks me, and I've seen some things, the audacity. How's it working out for you now, George? You have 0 custody. How about them apples? Are those the apples you're talking about in the apple cart, Judge Hine? Because that's only apples I can think of, making this poor woman visit her child to give him his Christmas presents at a dadgum McDonald's.
Ms. Wagner, when you said that you gained custody in 2018, was that the result of George agreeing to that, or was that a court decision?
What was that?
When you said you got custody back of your son in 2018, was that because George gave your son back to you, or was it the result of a court action?
It was a court action.
Okay. And Ms. Claytor, can you tell us, when you were having contact with the Wagners, George, prior to them moving to Alaska, so during that, then I think 2016 is when you were actually to have some contact with your son, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there ever a time when you had seen your son? Well, first of all, did they know, you had made them aware already that you were seeking more contact and contemplating court action, correct?
Yes.
And was there a time when something occurred after you had visited your son at their house?
Yes.
And can you tell us what that is?
I got pulled over by, I think it was State Highway Patrol, because there was a call that I was waving a gun around and throwing trash out, and that I had drugs in my car.
Okay. And how did you know that was what somebody had said?
Well, I'm going to let her answer that question, how she knew.
What are you objecting to? I already told you no more objections unless you're going to object to that dadgum leather vest, which we know you're not going to object to because he wore it the entire trial, all like 40 days of this trial. But at the end of the day, she should be allowed to testify because it was law enforcement that told her. It's not like she just made this up or she got a call. She was pulled over by the dadgum cops, for Pete's sake. Ugh. I know that they got a job to do, but sometimes it's annoying.
Okay. How did you know that?
That's what the cop had told me.
And as a result of that, did you offer for him to look into your car and see if there was any of the items that were alleged to have been there?
Yes,
Okay. And did he find anything?
he didn't look.
Okay.
Irene says, I hope Tabitha has peace and joy today. I cannot imagine being separated from my children. Back when Tabitha was testifying, when the trial was occurring, because I streamed the trial as it happened, there was someone in my chat who knew Tabitha or had contact with Tabitha. And I asked this person to please, on my behalf, tell Tabitha that she had all kinds of support in our chat, and that and on my channel, and that we only wish the best for her, that I only wish the best for her, and that if she ever wanted to tell her story, whenever she's ready, if she's ever ready, that I would really appreciate it if she would come and tell her story, because, you know, we're hearing a lot through the trial, but I would imagine that Tabitha has so many more things that she could share or would want to share maybe someday, that she wasn't able to share at trial, you know, because of course there's certain things that don't come in, and, you know, all of that. So I hope that even whether she ever reaches out to me and does it on my channel or not, if, you know, if she ever does decide to tell her story because she finds it to be cathartic, then I hope that she does that, because I think that she has a lot more support than maybe what she realized back in 2022 when all of this happened.
And Ms. Clater, have you ever had a drug problem?
No.
I don't know. So Irene says, did the Wagners wield a lot of power in that area? I know they lied and forged documents, but geez, they got away with a lot, including Jake dating Hannah as a minor. Yeah. I don't know if it was, I suppose the answer is yes, because I do think that the form of power that they had was in the fact that people were scared of them more than anything. That's the impression that I get. But you know, I'm not from the area. And I would hope that, you know, if there's anybody that is local to this that's watching now or is going to watch, if you're watching this on the replay and you know the answer to this, if you would, if, you know, leave it in the comments and let us know, because I am curious how, to me, that's the impression that I got. And I want to know if I'm accurate on that, is that they were feared more than anything because they're thugs.
Was there another time that something happened after you had visited your son at the Wagner residence?
Yes.
And can you tell us, do you recall when that would have been?
Was around Mother's Day or Easter.
And what year would that have been? Do you recall?
2016.
And can you tell us what happened?
My 6-month-old daughter became unresponsive, so we took her to the emergency room where they did tests and found drugs in her system.
Tell me, first of all, this was a child of yours.
Yes.
She was 6 months old at the time.
Yes.
And had she been with you at the Wagner residence that day?
Yes.
And tell us what kinds of interactions she had with the other people in the home.
She had stayed on my hip for a while until Angela had asked to see her. And so I gave her to her so she could see her while I went and used the restroom.
Other than that time period where you were in the restroom, was your daughter out of your view while you were at the Wagners that
No.
day? And did you make it back home before you noticed that about your daughter as far as her physical condition?
Yeah, I had made it home.
Okay. And when you say she was unresponsive, what do you mean by that?
She was just laying there staring off into space. I went to pick her up and she was as limber as a newborn.
And what did you do as a result of that?
I had woke my husband and we took her to the emergency room,
Okay, and do you recall where you went?
the S1C.
And you indicated that they did some tests, and do you know what drug they found in her system?
Xanax.
Were you prescribed Xanax at
No.
all? Your husband?
No,
Did you have any Xanax in your home at all?
no,
And had you been anywhere else that day?
no.
And as a result of that, was there a children's service investigation?
Yes.
Okay. And did both you and your husband submit to drug tests?
We did, but they did not do them at the hospital.
You know what, Hash Brown? You're right. I remember this now. So Hash Brown said Frederica has money and was well known in the community, and rumors swirled around about her being a slumlord. I seem to recall some testimony in George's trial, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe an article that I read, but I do feel like there was something about Frederica at one point doing a sale of a home or trailer, and it was like a rent to own situation, and the people had been paying and whatnot, and then Frederica came and ended up evicting them. I believe she said the child was her daughter was about 6 months old. I believe that's what she said. And I believe, Irene, the accusation is, or the assumption is that it was Angela. Okay, thank you. And by the way, I don't know if I said hi to you when you came in, but it's good to see you, babe. So yeah, I thought I thought I had remembered that. I mean, these people were not good people. Just they weren't. Like I said, they're like the bootleg version of the Devil's Rejects for reals, the Ohio edition.
Okay. Did you volunteer to do them at the hospital?
Yes.
But you did take tests later?
About a week later.
Okay. And were those negative?
Yes.
At the time that happened, did you voice your concerns or suspicions that it had happened at the Wagner house?
Not at first, no.
Okay. Did you ultimately voice that
Yes.
concern and suspicion? Okay. And again, that was during the time frame where you were actively trying to get more contact and custody of your child?
Yes.
Is your son still with you,
Yes.
along with your two daughters, correct?
Yes.
Oh, you're so welcome, Hash Brown. Thank you so much for being here. Thank all of you guys for being here, excuse me.
When you were in the home, we talked about your relationship with Hannah, where you said you were both competing for Angela's affection, basically.
Yes.
Right, okay. And can you tell us, after Hannah left that home, did you have contact with her?
Yes.
Okay, and what form would the contact be in?
Unless we ran into each other at a store somewhere, it was over text.
Okay. And did you also Facebook message with her?
Yes, that's how we texted.
Okay. And why do you text that way?
It's convenient.
Okay. And can you tell us, Ms. Wagner, we talked about your Facebook, the one that you yourself had not created, that I showed you earlier.
Also, yes, Hash Brown says, yes, Irene, lots of rumors about Frederica, Wicked Witch of Pike County. Yes, not only that, but it's my understanding that Frederica has attended like 90% of Billy Wagner's pretrial, all of it. She's very invested in her son. Something tells me that Angela Wagner may have been predisposed to some of this, the way that she was as a person. She was just, that was who she is. But I also think that it's also likely that those behaviors, that the way that she was encouraged, and what's the word I'm looking for? I'm pretty sure Frederica encouraged that type of behavior. I'm pretty sure that Frederica liked Angela being that way. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was really generous. And I'm glad you're enjoying this. I'm glad that you're getting something from it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. I think that Angela took on, not took on, because I think she was already this way. I think that Frederica, like I said, encouraged Angela's already predisposed behaviors. I think she rewarded them, is what I should say. I think that she probably approved, encouraged, nurtured, if you will, Angela's demeanor.
You did have a Facebook that you created and you communicated through, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And was it through that Facebook profile that you communicated with Hannah?
Yes, it was through the one that I created.
Okay. And regarding that Facebook account, had you ever given anybody else permission to look at or operate or handle your account other than yourself?
No.
Okay. And every Facebook account has a password, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever provide that Facebook password to anybody?
No.
Specifically, did you ever provide it to George or Angela or Billy or Jake Wagner?
No.
Did they ever have your permission to look at your Facebook
No.
account? And if you can tell us, when you say you text Hannah Mae, is that on the public page where everybody can see it, or is it a private message that you send?
Private.
Okay. So unless somebody were logged into your account, they would not be able to see those private messages, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Now, what we're about, this is what I'm trying to say, that Frederica treated Angela how Angela treated all the girls who were with her sons. Yes. And I think that, it starts with Frederica. Agreed. Now, what we're about to get into is this conversation on Facebook Messenger, in the DMs, as it were, that took place between Hannah Mae Rhoden and Tabitha. And I don't think that it was just this one conversation, because in this one conversation, Hannah Mae says something to the effect of, "I will never sign over custody. They'd have to kill me first." Something to that effect. That might actually be the exact quote. But at any rate, I don't ever think it's just one thing that sets of events in motion. I think it's several things. What I suspect is that this conversation was used by Angela to show proof that they had no other alternative other than to murder these 8 people. That's what I want. That's what I think. I don't ever think that things like this occur in a vacuum. I don't think that it's just one thing. I think it's often a series of things, many, many layers, all that. Oh, no doubt Angela knew. She knew where all the bones were
And do
buried.
you recall having conversations about the time that both you and Hannah lived at the Wagner residence with Hannah?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, this is a good question. Sunday Doodle says, this is similar to the Kansas case. I think it's similar in the motive was over custody. I think where it differs is I think it's a little more complicated in this case. The level of criminality that already existed in this family. I think that they are somewhat similar, though. Yes, the motive is similar. Yes, or the same. Really, it's over custody.
I mean, okay. Well, yeah, why don't we do that? Okay. Ms. Pater, I'm going to approach you with what I'm marking as State's Exhibit EE2.
So just while we're waiting, Bama, she's talking about the Kansas mom's murder case is where two women were murdered on their way to pick up one of the women's children. And they were murdered because the other side of the family didn't want the mother to have custody any longer.
Ms. Claytor, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit EE2. And you will note that there are markings on this currently with yellow highlighting. I'm going to refer you specifically first to a message from March 25th of 2015. Are you able to see that? Your eyes aren't as bad as mine are at this point in life.
I can see it.
Okay. So the highlight is over there to the right of that particular message. And first of all, if you can look at that, it appears to have been a message from Hannah to you. And if you can read that, and if you can tell us if you recall receiving that Facebook message from Hannah Rhodens.
I know that I have Melissa in the
It
nightbot.
says,
Hold
I just
on.
want to say I'm sorry for being a bitch.
So wait,
when-
the question, listen to the question and answer the question.
Okay, do you recognize that as a message you received from Hannah?
Yes.
Okay, and if you could go ahead and tell us what it says.
Let me find out what I
It
put in
says,
there. Hold
I just
on.
want to say I'm sorry for being a bitch when you was down there and being rude and shit. That's honestly not who I am. That's who I was told to be. But you can text me if you want, if you have my number.
Okay. Do you recall receiving that message from Hannah Rhodens?
Yes.
Okay, in March of 2015?
Yes.
Okay. And specifically, as to that message, did anybody other than yourself have permission to access or view it?
No.
Then referring you to, there are some additional messages, all from March 28th of 2015, and the marking is to the left of that. It starts with, so Cody said,
Yes.
okay. Again, if you can look over back and tell me if you recall receiving that message, or receiving and replying
Yes.
to that message chain. Okay. And can you tell us what that says?
I said, so Cody said you and Jake are going to be going through a custody thing.
Oh, yes,
And
this
it's-
is, their case
Yeah,
is
trying
messed
to
up
get a
too.
job.
The Adelson case, yes, Callie
And she also
Lisa.
says we are supposed to go to court over it. I said, well, you are the mother, so it shouldn't be hard on your part, but we are dealing with Angela. And then I also said, and we know how she gets when it comes to Vine and Sons.
Yeah, we have some
Perfect
competing
timing.
noise out there, so I just ask you to keep your, now that the noise is over, could you answer the question again?
Yes.
Absolutely, crafty true crime.
Okay, the last part you said, just start where you said, well, you are the mother, and then read from there. I think that's when the,
I said, well, you are the mother, so it shouldn't be hard on your part, but we are dealing with Angela. And you know how she gets when it comes to Vine and Sons.
okay. And who is Vine?
My son,
Okay. And who is Sons?
her daughter,
Whose daughter?
Hannah Rhodens' daughter,
Okay. And that's a nickname for her?
Yes.
Okay.
What a
And is
cute
her
little
last name?
nickname.
Sophia.
Okay. And do you,
I just want to point out, you guys, that I've known the entire time I've been discussing Hannah and Jake's child. I've known what the child's name is. It's just that she is a child. And I've tried to not use her name just because I just feel awful for her. Bless her little sweetheart. Oh, this is terrible. All right, here we
recall
go.
having that conversation with Hannah Rhoden on Facebook in March of 2015?
Yes.
And same question, did anybody other than yourself have permission to access that, those Facebook messages?
No.
Referring down to May 17th of 2015, there's another marking along this side
Yes.
where it starts out with, have you gotten to see Vine lately? Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And first, if you can kind of look over that from May 17th.
Has it hash brown? Okay, well, that's
And do you
That's good to
recall having
know.
that conversation?
Yes.
Okay, and can you tell us what it says?
Hannah Rhoden asked me if I've gotten to see Vine lately. I said, no, not yet. Every time I set a date to see him, George has something to do or somewhere to go. He tells me he will message me back when he gets home, but then he never messages me back. Hannah says, oh, I would be really upset. I would say I'm scared to death that they are going to try and take Sophia. I said, oh, I am, and it kills me. Well, you know, since y'all was not married, she goes to you automatically. And he is the one that gets to see her every other weekend or whatever. And Hannah says, yeah, I know, but they could fight that. I said, yeah, but a judge ain't gonna take her away from you. You have a good home and people to help take care of her. And she says, I know. I'm trying to get me a place as soon as possible and a job.
And once again, Ms. Crater, do you recall having that conversation with Hannah Rhoden back in May of 2015?
Yes.
And once again, did anybody other than yourself have permission to access and look at that message?
No.
And just for clarification, it says there Tabby Breach. Can you tell us who Tabby Breach is?
Breach is my maiden name.
Okay, so that is in fact you?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. If, I don't have my watch on today, so I apologize. If it's time for break, that's,
Well,
Or
it's
can
it's
you-
actually a little past time. If we take our 15-minute break now, then do you want to go a little longer before lunch?
I can keep going if, you know, perhaps we should have to during.
Or we
I'm
can-
happy to go and then break for lunch.
Or we can take our lunch break now or in a few minutes. It's 11:20, 11:22 is what my watch says. So if we go to 11:30, we may want to break. If you want to do that, go to 11, another 5 or 10 minutes and then break. Does that satisfy counsel for the defense as well? Let's do that, and then we just take our lunch break that way, a little early. If any jury member has an urgent need right now, raise your hand for me. All right, so we'll go about another 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
Seeing no hands in the air.
Handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit EE3, and there's a long line there. First of all, if you can look at that, there's a May 28th of 2015 appears to be a conversation between you and Hannah, but if you could look at that and tell me if you recall having that conversation.
Yes.
Okay. And if you could tell us what that conversation says, starting with going day by day.
It says going day by day, same as you, only you get to see studs. I try to see Vine, but don't have a ride on the weekends, and George is working through the week. He says, and he won't meet me anywhere, even though the papers say both parties have to agree. And Hannah says, what do your papers say? I said that both parties, as in me and George, have to agree on a place and time, but when I ask him to meet me somewhere, because it costs $20 every time I go down there, if he would meet me somewhere, he says no. The judge gave me Vine the judge gave Vine to me, so it's his home only. It's where he is most comfy, but he just said he's just fine going to other people's homes, and everywhere else he won't even meet me at McDonald's. Hannah says, I know. I said, plus every time I go down there, he has some reason, oh, Vine just went to sleep, or you can only be about 5 minutes, we're leaving soon, or something. Last time I was gonna go down there and stay for a few hours and see Vine, well, George and I was talking about it, and we made plans for me to come over on a Saturday around noon, so Vine wouldn't be napping. Would it be? Well, it was raining that day, so I told George we would be going inside, me and my sister. Can I leave her name out of that?
Sure.
Well, he said that my sister had to drop me off and leave and come back when I was done. She don't have a phone for me to tell her I was done, so he said to have her wait by Joe's gate out by 32 or 23, whatever that road is. I asked why she can't just sit in the driveway in her car, and he gives me the BS reason and told me if I was gonna see Vine, I needed to get there because he was about to sleep, so we pulled out. We called the law, and they said that it's his land and we can't do anything. I said, what the heck is the law there for if he ain't gonna do anything? I said, what are they good for other than eating donuts and drinking coffee? Hannah says, exactly. Why is he that way? I said, because of what happened a long time ago, you probably heard about us fighting about it. We was always arguing over it, about what happened to me and my sisters a long time ago. That don't bother us, but he blames every one of my, what he calls problems on. Hannah says, yeah, I heard about it. That is what always gets brought up.
Okay, now this particular part of the testimony is also really important because, like I said, it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just Hannah and Tabitha's conversation respective to custody. Angela Wagner was obsessed in a very, very unhealthy way. This went, she fixated on what happened to Tabitha and Hannah when they were younger. They were both the victims of SA as children by somebody in their family. And Angela Wagner had a very, very unhealthy obsession and fixation on this. It is something that she constantly brought up, that this had happened to them. And so therefore, and because it had happened to them by somebody, either a family member or a family friend, that that Tabitha and Hannah Rhodens' families could not or would not or both protect Tabitha and George's son and Hannah and Jake's daughter from this. This was like, it's just, I cannot really find adequate words to describe the level of fixation that Angela had on this particular subject. In fact, it was such a sorry. So I just cut out for a second. Sorry about that. Angela's fixation on this was so unhealthy. Even when Jake married Beth Ann. No, it was me. It was me. I don't know. Streamlabs kicked me out for just a second. When this happened, when Jake married Beth Ann was also the victim of SA as when she was younger, and it was by a family member. And so she then accused Beth Ann of doing something to Jake and Hannah's daughter. Am I back for you guys? Let me get over here to this. Hold on. I don't know why it did that to me. Hold on. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Oh yeah, there I am. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Okay, good. All right. So she also accused Beth Ann of this, and this, among other things, it seems to me, if I remember correctly from Beth Ann's testimony, that the source of the majority of the fights that occurred between Beth Ann and Jake were the accusation that she was potentially harming Sophia, and the level of control that Angela wanted over Jake and Hannah's daughter, to the point where she wanted her granddaughter to no longer call her grandma, or whatever, Mima, Mama, I'm a Grammy, whatever the nickname was. She didn't want her to call her that. She wanted to be called, mom. So the level of, I cannot begin to express, the way that Hannah and Tabitha are talking about it. You can't really grasp it until you hear some other testimony, which we're going to get to, I promise.
I said, yeah, well, it happened forever ago, and it happened to, can I leave the name of that part? Thank you. But because we didn't say anything to anyone, he says my whole family is child molesters, and that's why he was going to make my sister come, leave and come back. But we was little kids. We didn't know what was happening or that it was wrong, nor does it bother us today. Yeah, we wonder now why it happened, but it doesn't change anything. I am who I am, and they are who they are.
Okay. And once again, Ms. Clater, I believe she says she's doing an experiment, and she'll get back to you
Yes.
next. But regarding that portion of the conversation, do you recall having that conversation with Hannah Rhoden over Facebook Messenger?
Yes.
And once again, did anybody other than yourself have permission to access those messages and view them?
No.
Well, there's only 3 more minutes. Let me just finish this and then we'll talk.
Referring you down to the bottom of the page, I believe there's a few more, just a few lines there. Where it says, let's see.
It's not working.
Oh, okay. That's because
Hey, Paula, good to see you.
okay. Can't you what's been marked as State's Exhibit EE4? And again, it looks like it is a continuation of that same
Aw,
thing.
Nikki. Well, I'm just glad you're here now. That's
Would this
what's
be a good time for us to
important.
run through the new- I don't want to cut things off, but
I mean, it's up to the court, Your Honor.
will this be lengthy, this one?
It's not as lengthy, but
Why don't we take a break at this time?
Okay.
We've been going at it quite a while, and it's 11:32. So we'll take our lunch break at this time.
Okay. So they're going to take their lunch break. And I realize now I had to go and find the actual day of this testimony. And so they're going to take a little break. They're going to come back and they're going to read more from the messages. So we'll just pick up there tomorrow morning. But when Jake and George had significant others, with George, it was Tabitha. With Jake, it started as Hannah. Hannah was young. She was 13 and he was 18 when they got together. Then Beth Ann. Now, Beth Ann came from a very, very sheltered existence. And I think sheltered might even be putting it very, very mildly. She had no real world experience. Okay. She was just the most absolute naive girl that Jake could have hooked up with in Alaska to begin with. She just was not prepared. And the Wagners also presented themselves somewhat differently. How they met was through church, number one. And it really wasn't until Beth Ann got to when they left Alaska. And I mean, she did have a red flag situation occur the night of her wedding. But I'll wait because I can't remember all of the details. And rather than get it wrong, I'd rather just wait and we'll listen to her testimony so she can tell you guys about it. But the only thing that I can say is that while it does seem that like the odds of every girl that these guys got with had SA as children in their past. And I wish I could say that's what a weird coincidence. What are the odds? But sadly, statistics show, we know what they show. It's so much more common than I think we would like to admit. And it does make me sad. but it seems to me that, like we talked about a little bit earlier, um, oh, that's interesting. um, EKG says, can we put together curriculum for Angela's next stint? I'm guessing it's at Marysville Prison. Let's write agenda and set requirements for graduation. I think we should do that. Yes, that sounds fantastic. I think that the way that Angela raised Jake and George and Billy too. Billy is complicit in the way that these two were raised. I think that the way that they were raised, the environment in which they were raised in, I think that they were taught that other human beings exist for them to get something out of, whatever that something may be. And it would be different for different people. But I think that they were taught how to spot a mark, somebody who's vulnerable. And I think that that included picking out girlfriend and wives, quite frankly. And I think that came from their upbringing. And so I think that they looked into, I just feel like that they saw something, that George and Jake saw something in Tabitha, in Hannah, and in Beth Ann that they knew that they could exploit. And that is why they chose them, even if it was at a subconscious level. So yeah, that's what I think. Oh wow. Nacho Fish Hope. You're welcome for covering it. Thank you for being here. I appreciate this. I've been following this case for a very long time, and while I'm not local, it's just one of those ones that when you learn the details, it just sticks with you. And I was hoping that things would go much differently at sentencing, number one. But I also was hoping that Billy would be going to trial on Monday. And so the healing process, because there's no closure, you don't get closure in a situation like this, but the healing process for the families could begin, because it really won't until they know what Billy Wagner's fate is going to be. And what the judge did by sentencing Jake the way that he sentenced Jake is he just demolished any finality that the family members may have had. You know, like when George's trial was over and he was convicted and he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, they know where George is going to be for the rest of his natural born life, barring some miracle, not miracle, but you know what I'm saying, some, you know, unforeseen something in his appeals process that grants him a new trial, which I don't think that he will get. But they were also under the impression that Jake would spend the rest of his natural life behind bars. So they knew where he would be. They knew what Angela's plea deal was. They knew that she would get out, but it was going to be after 30 years. And the last member who had a role in killing their family members, I should say, his trial was upcoming. And all of that is just, it's all a big, huge question mark. We don't even know when the trial is going to take place or where the trial is going to take place, because there are issues related to that are going on in the appellate court right now. So, you know, it's awful what happened. And it stuck with me for such a long time because I thought mistakenly, like the family thought that we were down to just Billy, and that then the healing process could begin and there would be some finality, some resolution, that the family members wouldn't have to go and attend all of these pretrial hearings, that after the trial, that part of it would be over for them. And it's not. And I feel awful for them. And it just breaks my heart. So this is where I'm going to leave you. We'll pick it up tomorrow morning. I will be on at, there's no way, 9 is too early. I will be I won't be able to do it. I know it. So I'm going to do it for 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And I have to be off by noon because Alex Erickson is doing a live on, she's going over Wade Wilson's trial. And I want to, I'll just redirect my live from there. So then I guess whatever we don't finish with Beth Ann, we'll finish tomorrow night. But I want to thank you guys all for being here. Thank you so very much. If you have not done so, please give your girl a thumbs up on the stream or a thumbs down, whichever you think I deserve. I'll never know, and I'm not going to judge. But it does help the algorithm. Do it for the algorithm. But thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it very, very much. I will be back tomorrow morning, and we will pick this up right where we left off. I've already got the timestamp for the next portion of Tabitha's testimony. So you guys have a great rest of your Saturday evening. Bundle up to everybody who's going to get Snowmageddon 2025. And you guys take care and have a great rest of your night. All right. Bye. Yes. Also, thank you to the chat. Thank you. Thank you to the chat. Thank you to the mods. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it very, very much. You guys have a great rest of your night. Bye.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do. Well, fuck you.
No malicious intent or effort was towards it.
No malicious. Finish her!
Minutes later.
We all do a little match sometimes.